When I saw that video of the Skittles, like I was showing the kids this morning, I thought of that parable. That was kind of the first thing that came to mind. We have such limited amount of time, and what are we doing with it? And I thought, and what value that time has, and what value our gifts have, even when we don't think that they do. That parable interested me, and I wanted to look up some more information about it. So what I found out was that a talent was an amount of money. It could have been gold or silver or something of lesser value. But on average, if we were to compare a talent to today's money, the 5 talents that the first man received would have been worth $1.5 million to us. So he was entrusted with that much money, which kind of changed the parable for me. The second man received about $600,000, and the third man, who the master trusted the least, received $300,000. Now to me, I don't have anywhere near the ability to give that kind of money to people, but even if I did, $300,000 seems like a lot of money to give to the person you trust the least. And we know that parables are a story with a earthly message, but a spiritual meaning. So what is the spiritual meaning here? Well, we can look at it in different ways. One thing that I really wanted to emphasize is how much the Master, how much God entrusts us with, how much value we really have. If we go based on that parable, we have been given valuable gifts, valuable opportunities to use those gifts. The second thing I wanted to talk about and mention was that the two men who invested the money took a risk. They decided to trust in their master and say, if I invest this money, this item I have of value, then he will honor me and bless me abundantly. And that is what happened. The third man was afraid. And he was afraid to take a risk. He was afraid to go and do with what he had been given, and so he buried it in the ground, which is sort of a thing that people did then when they had valuable items. They didn't want them to get stolen, so he hid it. I think the symbolism is pretty obvious, that we sometimes hide what we have been given, gifts that we have been given. Sometimes you have to be uncomfortable to use those gifts. I'll tell you what, this is not the most comfortable spot for me. I wanted to be a writer. Writers I think of as holed away in their rooms. I wrote with a pen or on the keyboard. And that just seemed much more comfortable to me. But along the way, God opened up different doors and pushed me through them. And I think that I had to be uncomfortable. I go back to that message I gave to the kids this morning about what we do with our time. I spend a lot of time complaining. I really do. I'll just be honest with you. I have gone back to grad school and I work full time and I have my family, and so I say, I feel like I don't have any time. I feel like this is very challenging, and so that inspired me to look at my gifts, my abilities, and say that this is the path that I'm on, and to be content with that, and to do things that are risky and challenging to me so that I am honoring what God has given me. I come from a long line of women and men in my family, but I think of the women because we're sort of that way in our family, who have a special spirit. And when my grandma tells stories, sometimes she'll say, oh, and then that's the one girl who lived with us that she moved in. And I'll say, what girl? And she's like, oh, she just didn't have a place to live, so she lived with us. And this happened more than one time. And I think, well, Grandpa must have been pretty patient to let you do that. But I also know my grandma's spirit. And at one time, I was one of the people that got to live with Grandma. So I think that, and what she taught me, what she taught my mom, who did the same thing when I was a kid, we were the house that all the kids in the neighborhood came to. We were the house that everyone wanted to be in, and all the animals in the neighborhood too. We kind of collected cats because my mom had a sweet spirit. So even though I wanted to be a writer, hold away the legacy of these kind of compassionate, loving women in my life created a compassionate, loving spirit within me. So I feel like I have to honor that and honor God with what he has given all of us. There was a man in the 1500s. His name was Antonio. He wanted to be a singer. That was what he had a passion for music. He would have hung out with you guys. He tried to get into the Cremona Boys Choir in Italy, and he was laughed out. So he decided, well, I'll take up the violin. I just have this passion for music. I'm going to take up the violin. His neighbors convinced his parents to make him put it down. So even though he had this passion and this love for music, he did not have the ability or the skill necessary to perform. His one skill was whittling, and he got made fun of because it wasn't an art-filled gift. But he continued with it, and he actually went to a master woodcarver and became his apprentice. And now today we know Antonio as Antonio Stradivarius, the man who made all the beautiful violins that can not be recreated and have an incomparable sound. So what he did was honor the gift that he had, even though it wasn't what he wanted. And he took a risk, and he invested himself. And now we still today recognize the name Stradivarius as equal to excellence. So you and I can continue that legacy forward and show other people that the gifts that God has given us have value, immense value. And sometimes we have to take a risk with those. There is a verse in Ecclesiastes that also comes to mind when I think about the amount of time we have. And you guys probably know Ecclesiastes is attributed to King Solomon. King Solomon lived a very luxurious life in the huge, he had incredible wisdom, but he also had lots of money and things, and it made him discontent. And he wrote this book of Ecclesiastes, and if you've ever read it, his theme is life is meaningless. Life is meaningless. It all can be a downer if you read Ecclesiastes without knowing the theology behind it. The theology behind it is God gives life meaning. God gives life purpose. We are here for a blink of an eye. And it says in 2:24, there is nothing better for mortals than to eat and drink and find enjoyment in their toil. Eat, drink, and be merry. We've heard that before, right? Find enjoyment in what you do. When I think about those Skittles and how little time we get to do the things that we want to do, it means that we have to find joy in the things that we have to do. We have to find a place of contentment and peace, like Antonio Stradivarius did, with what we've been given, and look at life positively. Because the last message of that proverb, or of that parable, is the master didn't have to give anything, but he gave it freely. And he entrusted us with what was given. And we all have opportunities, no matter how many Skittles we have left, we have today, and we have the opportunity to share and to love each other just as he loved us. So thank you very much.